Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about the 2020, I'm saying 2020, 2040 presidential election, what it could potentially look like. So, I've edited the electoral votes to current trends. This probably is not going to be the map. Uh, Arizona has 14, Texas would have 43. This is just based on current trends. This could change, but yeah. So let's get started. Hop right into it. Again, this is not going to be the actual result. If it is, that'll be pretty funny, but I don't think it's going to happen. This is just based off trends, so obviously it varies per candidate. If you have a Democrat in 2040 who's good in the Sun Belt, they can, maybe win Mississippi. But if you have someone who's good in the Rust Belt, they can hold on to maybe Michigan and Pennsylvania. So we'll have to see. But yeah, let's get started with our safe Democratic states. Phil. A lot of these are not going to change. I think New Mexico and Colorado would be safe by then. Same with Nevada. I mean, Nevada, I don't think it's trending blue necessarily, but the Hispanic population is growing, and even if they are somewhat trending Republican, they're still majority Democrat. And once they get big enough, to the point where they're just dominating the state, where they're 90% of the population, Clark County, which is very Hispanic, I don't see the Republicans winning Nevada, and they could just give up on it. I think Virginia would be safe, Democrat. All of these states, actually, not Delaware. Delaware wouldn't be safe. Some of these northeastern states would actually be swing states. Massachusetts and Vermont would be safe, though. First District of Maine would be safe. New York would also be safe. And then for our safe Republican states, there are still some safe Republican states. I think Idaho is debatably safe. The Dakotas are actually losing population. The Dakotas could be competitive by the 2060s, but they'll still be pretty red by the 2040s, actually. Not the 3rd District. Nope. That's safe. But the 1st District would not be safe. Kansas would not be safe. Oklahoma, though. A lot of these states would be safe. Alabama would also be safe. And the 2nd District of Maine would be safe for the Republicans. The Republicans start out with 100 safe electoral votes to 168 for the Democrats. Now, there are some states that are usually safe for the Republicans, like Montana or Utah or Kansas or Louisiana, Mississippi, that are not safe. This is due to demographic trends and just the suburban swing in Kansas helped narrow it up significantly from 2020, from 2016. Actually, I forgot Arizona would be safe Democrat by then. The trends are just too much for the Republicans to overcome. Plus the fact that the suburbs of Arizona are still redder than the suburbs of neighboring California and New Mexico, for example. So I think the suburbs are going to trend blue in Arizona really hard. And the fact that, Native Americans are turning out now, which is going to help Democrats there. Now, for likely Democratic states, I think North Carolina would be likely, same with Georgia. Now, North Carolina's been really kind of a white whale for Democrats. They won a few statewide races there. I mean, they won the governorship. They won, Roy Cooper won re-election this year, but they lost an important Senate race there. They lost the presidential race there. So, yeah, but I do think that North Carolina would be likely D by 2020 or 2040 because of the fact that the black population is growing. The suburbs are swinging blue. Now, rural areas aren't going at the same rate. They're actually losing people when you compare them to these other regions that are trending blue. Georgia, similar thing. We saw it flip this year. We also saw the 2 Senate seats flip. So I think we have a good indication that Georgia's definitely trending blue, and I think it would be a 10 to 12 point Democratic state by 2040, and it could even be safe by then. I'm not sure. I also think that Illinois would be likely D. More like a 6 to 7 point one for the Democrats. Chicago's losing people, and the downstate isn't really losing too many people. But it isn't like Illinois loses one person every 20 minutes or something like that. So it's not growing, and I think that's gonna hurt the Democrats in Illinois. So in 60 by the 2060s or the 2070s, Illinois could be a toss-up leaning Republican state because Chicago's losing people, and that's where the Democrats essentially get all their votes from. Now, I also do think still that New Jersey would be safe likely Democrat. This is because the suburbs of New York are still blue, as in Newark is losing people, but I don't see it losing enough people to make this more competitive than likely Democrat. So 248 electoral votes for the Democrats, 100 for the Republicans, but they have some likely states of their own. I think Wisconsin is a likely Democratic or is likely Republican state at this point. And also I forgot that New Hampshire would be likely Democrat for similar reasons as New Jersey. No, not similar region to New Jersey. I think New Hampshire, the Republicans really haven't been winning New Hampshire lately, except for Sununu, but he's kind of I guess, not really, doesn't really matter because it's a governor race that we all know is safe Republican. And they could win a Senate race there in 2022 if Sununu does run, but that's a story for another day. So, yeah. Now, New Hampshire, I do think, is probably going to stay blue for the time being. People are saying that New Hampshire is trending red. I don't really think that because the suburbs are swinging against the Republicans. Rural New Hampshire is still somewhat blue compared to, rural North Dakota. So, yeah. Now, the Republicans, they only have, to be honest, I don't really think that they have too many likely states. I think that they only have 2, and Louisiana is another likely state. Oh, and they also would have the first district in Nebraska would be likely. So, yeah, Louisiana and Wisconsin. I think Wisconsin's trending red for sure. The rural areas are getting redder, and they're growing at a faster rate than, Milwaukee and Madison are. And Milwaukee and Madison, along with some northern parts up here, but they're kind of small. Milwaukee and Madison are where the Democrats get their votes from, and they're losing population. So I think Wisconsin would be a likely Republican state by 2040. I think this first district in Nebraska, they're probably going to gerrymander Nebraska, to be honest. But if these are the lines, and I can't edit the lines on Yapums, so we're just going to assume that these lines stay, or these districts stay. Nebraska's first district could be competitive because Omaha and Lincoln are growing, and Lincoln is actually, I think, split between the third district and the first district, so they kind of cracked it because Lincoln and Omaha are the two biggest cities, and they're the only Democratic areas of the state. And they're both growing, and their suburbs are trending bluer, so that could make this district competitive. It would be like a 5-point Republican district. And I also forgot to mention that I do think that this first district in Nebraska would be safe for the Democrats. And I think Maine at large would be safe. Wait, no, hold on. No, my bad. And yeah, and I think that'll do it for the lean, or for the likely Republican states. I'm sorry, the lean Democratic states. I think Maine at large will be lean because both these districts are safe by this point in time. But the first district is still a bit more safe than the second district. They can also gerrymander Maine, but again, that'll be interesting to see what happens there. But I think Maine at large would probably be a lean Democratic state. I think Connecticut would be lean Democrat, as would Delaware. I think Rhode Island would still be more competitive because Connecticut and Delaware, I think Wilmington isn't losing people fast enough to make the southern part of the state more dominant. Connecticut, I think, just too urban, like Stamford, Bridgeport, Hartford, even like Litchfield, which is up north in Connecticut, kind of rural, are Democratic areas of the state, and I don't see the Republicans winning it yet. But by 2050, I think Connecticut's a toss-up. I also, and the Democrats are going to win here. I think that Michigan would still be lean Democrat, and I say this because Michigan is going to trend away for Democrats for a few years, like in 2024 and 2020. I think by 2028 it'll flip and be like lean Republican. Same with 2032, but it's going to trend back to the Democrats because the suburbs are going to grow faster than the rural areas for a bit, and that'll be kind of masked by the fact that the rural areas are going to overtake them for a bit in the late 2020s and early 2030s, but it's going to revert back by the 2040s, and that'll make Michigan a lean D state. I think Texas, South Carolina would also be lean D states. I mean, as you can see, the Democrats would win according to this projection. South Carolina, because the black population is growing. It's that simple, and they're not really trending away from Democrats, despite Brexit and all that stuff. But they're not trending away from Democrats. In Texas, I think Texas, the Hispanics in Texas swung it more in favor of Trump than a lot of people expected. But I predicted this, and I'm going to predict that Texas would flip blue by like 4 or 5 points by 2040. I think it's going to flip blue by 2028 by like a tilt margin. Then it'll be lean for the 2030s. And the Hispanics are actually going to start to trend Republican a little bit, which will keep it, kind of stay at lean D for a bit, bordering unlikely. So, yeah. For lean Republican states, I think Pennsylvania would lean Republican at this point. I mean, it would probably be a 3 to 4 point GOP state. Now, the suburbs of Philadelphia are growing, and Pittsburgh's going to stay blue. But the rural areas, the Republicans have kind of maxed out their support there, but they're also growing. So I just do think that the white voters are trending away from Democrats, which is in the end going to cost them in Pennsylvania, unless they change their platform. But the white vote is trending away from Democrats because, even in the early 2000s, they were very competitive with, rural white voters in like West Virginia. Now that's that's silly to think about. Now, and also I think Alaska would be lean D, just because the Anchorage is essentially. The interesting thing about Alaska, and you might not know this, but Alaska, the rural areas of Nebraska are blue, and Anchorage and Fairbanks, which are the two biggest cities, and I think Juneau as well, are the red parts of the state, because the rural areas are very diverse, like they're very Native American, and those people vote Democrat, but the urban areas are very white, and they rely heavily on the oil business, which is why they vote for Republicans usually, unless it's a waiver like Mark Begich, for example. But that, yeah. But I think that by the 2040s, that the Native Americans population is growing, whereas cities like Fairbanks and Anchorage are losing white voters, and so I think that's going to flip Alaska by the 2040s, potentially. Now, for the Republicans, they're tilt Democratic states. I think Kansas will be tilt D. Actually, no, Kansas will be lean D, if I'm being honest, because like we saw Biden, I think he flipped 3 counties in Kansas. I think I know one was Riley County. I'm not sure about the other ones. They're also gonna eventually flip the county that Wichita's in. And the suburbs of Kansas are trending blue a lot faster than I expected heading into Election Day. I think it's gonna flip Kansas by the 2040s. So now for our tilt D states. And also, I forgot that Florida should be lean Republican. Florida's going to be a swing state forever, to be honest, but I think it has a slight Republican lean because the Hispanics trend away from Democrats. But, yeah. Now, I think Connecticut is tilt D by 2040. I think it'll be tilt R by, like, the end of the 2040s, because Providence is eventually not going to be big enough to overtake the rural areas of the state, making it very competitive. So, yeah. Now, our other tilt D states, Minnesota, Utah, and Montana. So, starting with Minnesota, I think Minnesota is tilt D, mostly because of the fact that it's very college educated, and the Minneapolis suburbs are enough to overpower the rural areas of the state. You know, like this part down, like ranging from here to here, is very rural and very Republican. But the Minneapolis metro area, meaning Minneapolis and suburbs, are pretty big. Plus the fact that the Democrats have another kind of population center up in Duluth, which is in the Iron Range, which makes that area vote blue. So, yeah, I think Minnesota, it'll be more competitive by the 2040s, but I don't see it flipping. I mean, it could flip, but I'd still argue the Democrats are favored. In Utah, Salt Lake City is just growing too quick. Provo's trending blue as well. It's a red city, but Provo's trending blue because the Mormons, like the Mormon population in Utah is steadily decreasing. It was like 80% only like 40 years ago. It's now like 61% now. So we could see in the 2040s, eventually, it could become the Utah is minority Mormon, which would be weird. But yeah, so Salt Lake City, I think, is going to overpower the rest of the state and kind of make it slightly bluer. Montana, I think, Montana's getting more diverse. Plus the fact that Democratic areas of the state like Missoula are turning out more. And they're just generally speaking, Montana is trending blue because of the fact that Democrats are winning Senate races there. They found a way, even Democrats have been winning Senate races in Montana for a very long time, even though it's historically been a redder state. I mean, John Tester in 2012 won re-election to the Senate on the same ballot as Obama. Max Baucus in 2008 won re-election on the same ballot as Obama. So, yeah. But I think Montana would actually become a blue-leaning state because of the fact that I guess, and I say this in quotes because Montana is still kind of a small state, the bigger, in quotes, cities like Missoula, Billings, Bozeman, Helena, they're getting bluer and they're turning out more than the rural areas of the state. Plus the fact that the rural areas of the state is getting more and more diverse with Native Americans, which, if they turn out, could flip the state blue. So, yeah. Now, the last Republican state is going to be Mississippi. It would barely tilt blue, I think, or tilt red. Now, Democrats are winning like 10% of white voters in Mississippi, and that's why they're losing it so badly, despite the fact that nearly 40% of Mississippi's population is black. So Democrats now the black population in Mississippi is growing, which is good news for Democrats, but they're going to still have to make inroads with white voters to win the state, which is why I'm going to put it as tilt Republican. But yeah, so that's it, guys. Thanks for watching this video. Please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you all in the next video. Goodbye.